On today's Moving the Chains, an interesting interview, Jerel, a guy who, coached last year, but now had that interim tag removed. That's Jarrett Neely, head coach of the Keenan Raiders.
Man, and had it removed in a big way. I mean, they had a fantastic season going into the third round of the playoffs. So just very well deserved. A lot of times that interim stuff doesn't work out, but they hit a home run here with Coach Neely. You're really excited to see what he's going to do and very thankful that he was able to talk to us today.
Agreed. This is a great interview. Hope you guys are going to enjoy it. Learn, a lot about him and what his plans are for this program moving forward. Once again, head coach Jarrett Neely of the Keenan Raiders here on Moving the Chains.
Get ready for the ultimate South Carolina high school football experience with Movin The Chains. From previews to recaps, we've got you covered. Dive into our expert preview shows, predicting winners and sharing insights. Then join us post-game for the thrilling recaps, exclusive interviews, and highlights you won't find anywhere else. Plus, connect with fellow fans on our Friday night spaces on Twitter/X. No one covers South Carolina high school football like us. Join us at Movin Chains on all social media platforms and visit movinchains.com today.
Welcome into Moving the Chains, brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union. I'm Kevin Thomas alongside Jerel Hendricks. Got a great interview today, a very special guest, the new head coach of the Keenan Raiders, Jarrett Neely. Coach, how you doing today?
Doing great, man. How are y'all?
Doing well, and we appreciate your time. We really do. If this is you guys' first time tuning in, be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter/X, Instagram, YouTube, and more at Movin Chains. Our website, movinchains.com, and our podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. Coach Neely was hired in February. He was the interim head coach last season for the Raiders, leading Keenan to an 8-5 record in the third round of the playoffs. Prior, he coached at Northwestern and York. Coach, let's just start there. I guess what's that transition been like? Obviously you were calling the shots, being the head man, but now, it's officially your program. How has that kind of changed things for you here over the last few months?
Well, it quite haven't changed too much because, so I got to Keenan in 2020. My guy, Coach Ray McLeod, he coached me when I was in Rock Hill at Northwestern. And once he got the head job at Keenan, he kind of brought me along with him. I was the offensive coordinator. So I was running the show on offense. And, Coach McLeod kind of gave me, the reins to kind of implement a lot of things that, that I saw, what I think that'll help the football team. And so the guys kind of, they already know who I was. So I kind of implemented a few good things, and Coach McLeod loved it, and kind of stuck with it, and thank God that Coach McLeod kind of gave me that period to kind of let me do some of the things that I wanted to do. So it's an easy transition for me because the guys been hearing my voice, and we just been doing what we do, just trying to make it work.
Coach, you went into it briefly, but if you don't mind expanding on your background for us, how you got to this point and, your coaching career and, how you got to be that head man.
Well, first I started coaching, I graduated college, 2014. And I went over, actually started coaching with a guy from York, Bobby Carroll. He's the one who really got me into coaching. Coach Carroll coached against me. When I was at Northwestern High School, he was at South Point, actually, when they had Stephon Gilmore, Davion County, Devontae Holloman, all those guys, Charles Holmes.
It's a couple guys, not too good.
Yeah. All right. Just some future Hall of Famers there. Yep. But
MVPs, first-round draft picks.
Yeah, yeah. We had Kadar Patterson, Justin Burley, and all those guys. And Coach Carroll, he always respected my game. And I just remember, after the season, my senior year, they beat us in the regular season and then the state championship game. So they was 15-0 and we were 13-2. And as Rock Hill football, we played against them, at Clemson University. And I just remember Coach Carroll giving me a phone call, right after I got done with college, saying, "Hey man, are you interested in coaching?" I was like, "Well, no, not really." He was like, "I think you'll do good at it. I got a position for you down here in York." So I took the job at York, working in the school system as well with special need kids. And I was running backs coach, and I did 4 years with Coach Carroll, and I went over transition to Northwestern High School. That's my alma mater. So I actually got a call. I got coached by Cal Richardson, who was actually at Clemson right now. Cal Richardson called me and said, "Hey man, are you interested?" He was already at Clemson. "Are you interested in going to Northwestern?" I was like, "Yeah, for sure." And And he said, all right, Paige gonna give you a call. And, Paige gave me a call and, offered me a position. I was running back coach there. I did 2 years there. And then when Coach McLeod took the job over at Keenan, he actually called me and said, hey, man, I want you to come run the offense for me. And, from there, I've been at Keenan, we're coming up on 5 years now. I've been officially the offensive coordinator. And this year I'm officially the head coach, and I gave the offensive coordinator duties to my guy, Coach Adam Rice. I told him, you can have it, man. I'm done with it. So I'm just sitting back and I'm just, kind of observing everything now. So, yeah, that's where we're at now.
Well, Coach, you mentioned that, Coach Rice here, but how is the rest of your staff shaping up? Were you able to, keep a lot of guys from last year? Did you have much change? And are you looking maybe to hire anybody else, or if not, to shout out a couple, maybe your big guys on staff with you?
Yeah, I'm done with our staff. We have 13 coaches. So I have, we have a B team and of course a varsity team. So majority at Keenan, if you coach at Keenan, you're gonna have to coach the B team and also the varsity team as well. That's just, the nature we in. So yeah, I kept just about my whole staff. I kept my whole staff. I did add a few guys. I added Coach Adam Rice, who's actually the offensive coordinator. Coach Rice is, coming from, he was previously at Lugolf Elgin, offensive coordinator / quarterbacks coach. And he won multiple state championships down in Hendersonville, North Carolina. So he brings great, he's very energetic. He's very smart. So I just stay out of his way, man. I gave him full range, man. Just do what you want to do. It's your show. It's your time to run it now. And also brought another guy, DeAndre Johnson, who's helping us coach offensive line. He's really, really, really good. He's been coaching a long time. He coached down at South Point High School in Rock Hill. He's coached at Advanced High School in North Carolina. He's done an outstanding job. Another guy who I brought on was a volunteer guy named Coach Jarrett Mayfield. He's 21 years old. So I said, I looked at our staff. I said, we got to add some young legs out here, man. And I got him on, man. He's great. He give a lot of the older coaches a hard time because he get on their nerves because he always want to ask questions about everything. But I love it. I love it. I got a guy, Quasi Gary, who's been with me the last 3 years now. He was coaching receivers for me. And I moved him over to defensive backs and kind of helped our defensive coordinator, Coach Gordman. So both of those guys going to run the defense together. Coach Gordman was the defensive coordinator last year. He will be coming back to be defensive coordinator this year as well. Because, since I've been at Keenan, there's been a turnover rate with defensive coordinators there every year. So, I want those guys to get used to somebody being there. And those guys have responded really well. And, that's where we at now.
Coach, for those who have not seen the Keenan Raiders play, what should we expect, schematically for Coach Gordman's defense there? And then you guys lit the scoreboard up last year, so I know you're taking a step back. What should we expect from Coach Rice's offense going into this season?
Well, Coach Gordman is, he's a multiple type defense. 4-2-5. He can jump, 3-man. He do a lot of different things. He blitzed. Well, he blitzed a lot at practice. I used to have to get on him. I said, man, you better do that in the game. But yeah, he like to send, a lot of blitzes, which is good because, I love the blitz as well. So we have some key, returning guys over there. Darius Dixon, a guy who was, all-state linebacker last year, went over 100 tackles. We have Jamon Benson, who was in the secondary, who is really good. We have Quayshawn Hampton, who, he stands about, 6'6", 320 pounds, play OL and DL for us. So we have some really good guys over there. And offensively, Coach Rice sort of do some of the same things that we did last year. Of course, we want to run the ball first. We have a running back who's returning, Hunter O'Neill, who ran for 1,200 yards last year. He'll be just a junior this year. So we're really excited about him. We have some young guys who are competing at the quarterback position. But I am, excited about that group. I told Coach Rice, You know, Desmond Washington's gone, man. Desmond was a gunslinger. And I had Hernandez O'Neal before Desmond. So I pretty much had, you know, 2 outstanding quarterbacks. So I told Coach Rice, now's your time to try to develop a quarterback. I ain't have to develop no one. Those guys were already good, so I didn't have to develop nobody. But, you know, we got some young guys, and, you know, I think, you know, the most promising, you know, position on offense is our receivers. You know, we have some guys who can really fly. You know, we big at receiver. You know, we have a 6'4" receiver who was academically ineligible last year. He'll be playing this year. This Josiah Banner. We have Marcus Simpson, another kid who didn't play as much last year, who, you know, have really, you know, took the spring and also the summer series so far. Have Jordan Wilson, the guy who played last year for us a little bit. We have Deion Hollis, another kid at receiver who, you know, played last year as well. He was a starter as well. But, you know, we had 2 twins last year. The McNeil boys, you know, they graduating, and, I keep telling those kids, you know, we need somebody to, you know, fill those shoes. I know those tough shoes to fill, but, you know, we do have a lot of playmakers on that side of the ball, and I'm very excited to see how those guys respond.
Coach, you know, you've played for and coached with, and, you know, been under some great coaches in your tenure so far. Who were a couple of those guys that you feel like really helped kind of shape the way that you coach football now, and or maybe even some guys at the college pro level you like to watch now to kind of pick up things from too as well?
Yeah. Well, I played on a guy named Jimmy Wallace at Northwestern High School. You know, Jimmy Wallace was, you know, he is outstanding, man. He's outstanding. I think he got to be pushing, you know, almost 70 years old now, but he's still like, you know, it doesn't matter what it is. You know, if it's something football related in Rock Hill, South Carolina, then he's going to be there. You know, any coach's clinic, you know, he's going to be there. You know, that's just how he is. Also, you know, like I talked about earlier with Bobby Carroll. Bobby Carroll was, you know, is a big mentor to me. You know, those guys, Hall of Fame coaches. But, you know, Paige Wofford, I learned a lot from Paige Wofford. You know, when I started really coaching, working under Paige Wofford was, you know, it's great. You know, he is a stickler about, you know, everything. So, you know, it's a reason why those guys went 15 or 14 or whatever they went and won the state championship and scored 80 points a game. You know, that's just because the type of guy he is. You know, I didn't see it at first, you know, being his assistant. I'm like, why is this guy doing all of this? Why is he, you know what I'm saying? But then, you know, being on the other side now I see it. You know, he was a stickler about, you know, man, if he say be there at 4 o'clock, you better be there at 3:45. You know, at 3:50, you was late for him. And, you know, that's just how it was. And, you know, it kind of translated into the guys and also the coaching staff as well. And Ray McLeod, who I had the pleasure of coaching with at Keenan, you know, McLeod was a big, you know, energy guy. So I kind of, I'm not a big energy guy. Well, I am, but I'm kind of more laid back type and just kind of let things happen. You know, I kind of, you know, I see it like Mike Tomlin almost. Don't really, you know, if, you know, other teams score a touchdown, you know, don't get too down on the kids. You know, we score a touchdown, you know, don't get too up, you know, because you never know what happened after that. So I'm kind of more of a, you know, kind of mixture of all those guys. But, you know, I'd have had a pleasure of, you know, seeing some really good places, being around some really good coaches. And, you know, I'm still learning. I tell my coaches all the time, don't think just because, you know, I'm the head coach that whatever I say is right, because a lot of you guys got a lot more experience than me. So, you know, bring some, you know, what you guys have to the table and you can, you know, kind of branch off from there.
Coach, you keep referencing, man, you being from Rock Hill, and a lot of people around the state, man, they call it, it's Football City, USA. It's a special place. So, you know, what does that mean to you? And how have you kind of like implemented that city, you know, those schools and that tradition into your program and kind of develop that culture there?
Yeah, right. Rock Hill, you know, we play some pretty good football at Rock Hill. It wasn't Football City, USA when I was coming through. We just known for, you know, playing good football. But, you know, I still have, you know, my nephew is playing at Northwestern right now. He's playing defensive line. But, you know, I just, you know, coming up, you know, we take football serious in Rock Hill. You know, it's almost like, you know, it's football or nothing almost. That's kind of, you know, the mindset that, you know, that we have. And so I'm trying to implement that into, you know, these guys here. You know, we have to take it serious. You know, Keenan have never been known really for, you know, winning big football games. Always been a big basketball school. So, I kind of, I used to show those guys film of, even when I was at Northwestern playing, and, film now to this day, hey, this is how you run a stick route. You know what I'm saying? So those guys, man, they really bind into it. They get mad at me for talking about Rock Hill so much, but that's kind of pretty much all I really know. And but I learned a lot, like I say, from Paige Wofford. I understood that you have to be of course firm with these kids. Don't let them get away with too much, and just take it serious. That's the main thing that we preach to these kids at Keenan. Just take it serious. And yeah, just Football City USA will always be Football City USA.
Coach, we mentioned it last year. You were named interim. Kind of last minute before the season, I guess, started there. This year, obviously, you know that you're the head man going into spring ball and now into the summer and into the into the season. How much more, I guess, were you able to implement of what you wanted to do in the spring and what you wanted to do in the summer? Kind of get your I guess culture built and just the things that you wanted set there at Keenan.
Yeah. So last year they named me the interim, I think June the 6th. So this year, we came into spring. I was the head coach before spring practice. So this year now I have to, have to look at it, totally different, which the coaches still get on me or not, because, I'm an offensive coach. So I'll be on the offensive side of the ball a lot. So, but now I have to look at it from both sides, or really three sides, with special teams as well. But I have to do of course, a practice schedule for, offense, and defense, which, Coach Rice and Coach Gorman, they kind of, handle those things too as well. But, I'm now, I have to look at it as a whole. I think that's one of the biggest things I'm still trying to learn. I'm like, I'll be over there coaching offense and don't, forget about the defense. And they be like, hey, coach, come show us some love a little bit. And during 7-on-7s, I always get the offense, the hands up on everything. If it's a flag, I'm gonna say it's a flag or something like that. But I implement a lot. Of course, having great quality coaches around us, can help us out. Have always, that's been big for us as well. And then going into the summer, it's a time where we need to condition these kids, make sure they're well conditioned, make sure they're lifting weights, and Coach Rice have been handling pretty much the weight room this summer. He does a really good job. Him and our other offensive line coach, Coach Rivers. They also do a great job in the weight room. You can see, our guys, bodies are changing for sure. But the main thing is just making sure, like I said earlier, just making sure those guys just take it serious. And, I have been taking it serious, and we're doing a lot of team bonding activity this summer that's going to kind of, bring us together, and hopefully, it result in some more wins.
Coach, we're catching you late July, so a lot of the hay's in the barn. We talked about it. You did all this spring and summer workout, 7-on-7. It's time to strap the pads on and really get into it for fall camp. How excited? I was going to ask you, how excited are you for that? And what are you looking to learn about this version of your team, as you go through those summer workout, that summer practice and, get prepared for the season?
Right. Yeah. Going through the summer with just helmets on is, I hate it. But August 1st, be a first official, fall practice. What I'm really looking forward to, our guys is making sure that, how defensive coaches get, we be at 7-on-7 and, we run a 3-yard route and, a guy come up and, he don't even look like he's trying to make the tackle. Defense, they're going to make that tackle. They're going to make that tackle. I say, all right, we're going to see when the pads come on. We're going to see. But, I'm just looking forward to seeing our guys compete with pads on. Keenan, we, small 3A school, so we don't really have, a lot of our kids have to go both ways for sure. So we got to make sure that they are in shape. But I'm just, I want to see, like I tell my guys all the time, I want to see how tough they are. I want to see if you can go out there and run a whole drive on offense and then come back and do the same thing on defense. So we challenged them a lot this year. Actually, last week our trainer had to, kind of tell us to bag off a little bit because we had too many injuries. I said, we having injuries? We're not even hitting right now. But so I talked to him and say, man, we just, we have to be tough. We got to be tough. We rolling with about, almost, 50 kids right now. But you know how it is when, once school start, you'll have, 39th graders say they want to play football. And, I look at them like, where you been all summer? But that's kind of the nature of it right now. But I'm just really looking to see how tough our guys are, and that's going to be a question mark for us. So we need to see how tough we are. We have some tough kids, but I want to see, can we consistently do it?
Coach, you guys had a really nice season last year, and you mentioned earlier, you lost a couple key pieces there. Your quarterback moves on, the O'Neills move on, but you've got the McNeils move on. The O'Neills still there, but who are a couple kids that have maybe really stepped up and kind of taken on some leadership roles for you this offseason that you're looking for really big things out of this season?
Yeah, Tyreek Davenport Smith is a kid, who's he's going to play offense and defense for us. He played last year. Tyreek was he's a defensive end, linebacker. He played a little, tight end, H-back for us this year. Tyreek is a really, really, really good football player. Quayshawn Hampton, who I mentioned earlier, offensive line, defensive line. He's about 6'6", really, really big. And Hunter O'Neal, Josiah. So, like I said, Josiah O'Banner is a kid who I am really excited about. Josiah is about, Josiah have 6'4", 6'5", who can really go up and get the football. I'm really excited about him. Marcus Simpson is a guy who I'm also excited about. Receiver, Marcus is about 6'2", 6'3", big, bulky guy. Coach Wright's probably when he see this interview, he's probably gonna say, man, why are we talking about Marcus? Because he want us to hire Marcus so much. But people gonna see him pretty soon.
Clip that.
No, you put that in there because I want him to see it. Marcus Simpson. Jordan Wilson is a kid, man. He would kind of remind me of Taheem McNeil, the receiver that we had last year. He has shown a lot of ability, man. He's very quick. We can play Jordan at running back and also receiver as well. And we are really excited about Jordan. And like I said, the quarterback situation is is still up in there. We're still trying to figure out some pieces there, which we have pieces, which is a good thing. This is like the first time we have actually had 3 quarterbacks at Keenan. Normally when I've been there, we only had just the starter, and that's it. So I went through 4 years with playing just one quarterback. But those credit to those guys, Desmond, Washington, and Hernandez O'Neal were really tough. But yeah, we're excited about those kids, man. I just can't wait to see those guys play when the pads come on. They all look good in shorts and t-shirt, but I'm ready to see when they put the pads on and see who can we really count on.
One of the many special things about high school football, especially in South Carolina, is the communities. You've been a member of that Keenan community now for about 5 years. What makes it special, and how have they embraced you, as a football coach and especially the head coach now? Yeah,
it's the kids. It's the kids. I'm big on, I talk to my coaches, I talk to my parents, I talk to the players. I'm big on relationships. I always ask my coaches, how are we going to make these kids better? If they sit there and start talking about, coach, we can put him at this position, or we can put him at that position. He can do this, or he can do that. Then, I don't want that coach around. I want a coach who is going to, tell me, hey, this kid, I want to make this kid a better brother or a better son, a better student, a better, somebody out in the community. That's what I want to hear from my coaches. And, of course, these kids can play football. They are, talented. But the main thing is we just want to build those relationships with these kids. And each kid, I try to build a relationship with each of our kids. And I want to know, their parents. I want to know, of course, where they live. I want to know how serious football to you, classwork, and the community have been behind me. Like I say, I've been there, coming up on my 5th year now. So they pretty much, they already know me. So, yeah, that's where we're at right now.
Founders Federal Credit Union means banking made for you. The on the go, the pick up and go, and the I want to go. Because at Founders, we give you the financial tools that make every dollar work for you. For the little things to the big things. For your future and your peace of mind. We'll always stay grounded in our roots, but reaching beyond what you'd expect is where we'll always go. Find out what our members already know and enjoy a new way to bank. Relax, you're with Founders.
Couple easier ones for you, Coach, what you go today. Maybe in your office for a home game, on the bus to an away game. But what's on your pregame playlist as you get ready to take the field on Friday nights?
Gospel.
Okay. We've got a lot of those gospel answers lately. I love that.
That's the theme of the year.
And it's been like that since I've been a player as well. You know, like I don't know if you guys remember, I'm not a big, rah-rah guy, Yeah, I don't think I do well when I get too, amped up. So I'm always chill, man. I got coaches around me that, they be big rah-rah guys, but I'm listening to, Fred Hammond and all those guys. I'm listening to Tasha Cobbs, man. I just like to sit back and just kind of chill and just, relax. And it's gonna be a lot of gospel because our first 4 games this year is on the road, which is crazy, but we'll take it. I'm not complaining.
Love it, Coach. This is the question we ask anybody that joins our program. We got to ask about food. Me and Kevin are hopping in the car going down to Columbia. We got to get something to eat before the game. Where's somewhere in the area that we need to get some food from? I
love Blaney's Bar and Grill.
Okay.
Blaney's is, it got like a variation of everything. Good wings, good burgers. I've been eating there. When I first got to Keenan during the summertime, me and Coach McLeod, we went there every day after practice, every single day. And, we ate. I always get the, the shrimp fried rice with the mild wings with the lemon pepper seasoning on it. So it's good, man. It's
at
great.
The Bar and Grill, got the fried rice. Okay.
Yeah, it's great, man. Please try that out.
Will do.
Do it, man. Well, last one for you, Coach. I know it's still kind of early, but maybe what are some goals you guys have set for the 2025 season for the Keenan Raiders?
Yeah, I'm big on goals, but I'm not really big on goals. I talk to my kids all the time about, they always say, we want to win the state championship, Coach. We want the state championship. Okay, you telling me you want to win the state championship, but you have missed 2 practices this week. How are you going to win the state championship if you're doing that? But, of course, first thing first, we want to win the region. All right, first thing first, and then we want to get into the playoffs, and of course, have home field advantage, and try to make a run at it. I'm not going to sit here and say of course everybody can tell you they want to win the state championship. That should be everybody goal. But that is what we're trying to get to, and I want our kids to understand that in order to win the state championship, for one, you have to get lucky. For 2, you have to put in the work. You have to work. So don't tell me you want to win the state championship if you're missing practice, but. First thing first is just to win the region championship. We was a game away last year. We got beat by Newberry. Actually, it was kind of funny. We actually came in third because some of the tiebreakers and everything. But we have a tough region. Newberry is going to be really good again. Silver Bluff was a team going to be really good as well. Fox Creek is. They still coming along, and Swansea actually beat us last year. So. We have a tough region, but of course, we just want to go, like the coach at South Carolina State say, just go 1-0 every day through practice and also in games and whatever it is. So that's kind of our goal for the season.
Well, this has been great. I want everyone to go check out Coach Neely and the Raiders program on social media. They do a great job posting updates on their kids and their program. Certainly check them out on there. Like I mentioned, follow us on social media, our website, movingthechains.com, and our podcast on all podcast platforms. Moving the Chains is brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union. Jerel, anything else before we let him go tonight?
Coach Neely, man, we really appreciate your time. It's crunch time, about time to strap the pads on and hit the grass and really get after it. So we do appreciate you in mass prep mode. It was awesome learning your story. Another veteran of Football City, USA. So we've been stacking up those coaches and players and those programs.
We taking over the area.
You really are. So, man, we just really wish you the best this year, you and your kids in that program. And thanks for joining us tonight.
Yes, sir. Thank you guys for having me.
Appreciate you, Coach. Look forward to stopping by our practice or game, getting to meet you in person, and best of luck, all right?
All right, thank you, guys.
Get ready for the ultimate South Carolina high school football experience with Movin The Chains. From previews to recaps, we've got you covered. Dive into our expert preview shows, predicting winners and sharing insights. Then join us post-game for the thrilling recaps, exclusive interviews, and highlights you won't find anywhere else. Plus, connect with fellow fans on our Friday night spaces on Twitter/X. No one covers South Carolina high school football like us. Join us at Movin Chains on all social media platforms and visit movinchains.com today.